Hi everyone. Welcome. Great, I think everyone's in. Welcome everyone to the session and thanks for joining us to the session on money transfers, methods and challenges. I'm just going to put you all on mute for now, just so that we don't get interference from your microphones too. So my name's Emma Beecham and I'm a Development Support Manager for Hub Cymru Africa. And I'm here to facilitate the session today along with my colleague Fadili, who I think is there somewhere, and Peter Gilby as well, the Communications Manager. So can I have the next slide please, Fid? Just to talk through the agenda. So we're going to start just with a bit of housekeeping, and then we're going to go on a poll, and then we'll have a panel discussion. So I'll introduce our panelists today. We have 3 people. And then we'll have a Q&A, so we can have a, feel free to unmute and ask questions. Then we're going to have a bit of group discussion and come back together and feedback on that, and then wrap up the session. So you do the next slide, please, Fid. I know you've probably been on previous sessions, so you've probably heard this already, but just to go over again, it's a Zoom meeting format, so please just keep yourselves muted unless you're actively speaking. And if you could put your name and organisation in your Zoom window, that really helps us just to be able to identify you with questions and the breakout rooms and so on. We're recording the session, so if you don't want to be seen, just turn off your camera and put a non in your name. We've got a couple of polls, so really appreciate if you would participate in those and complete the feedback survey at the end of the session, so that we get it just helps us to improve our quality of our work. And we encourage you to actively participate. Please put your questions in the chat box, and you can use the reactions icon at the bottom to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And we'll come to those within the session. And just to reiterate, it's a safe space, and we won't tolerate abuse in the session. So, and the safeguarding policy is on the website. Great, thank you. So if you could stop sharing the screen now, Fid. We're just going to, before we go any further, just have a quick poll, which we'd really appreciate if you could all complete. It'll be on the screen for a few minutes, and the purpose is to inform the future work of Hub Cymru Africa and the development of networking and support clusters. So we'd really appreciate if you could just complete that. Fid, would you be able to launch the poll, please?
Emma, just let me know when ready.
Okay, well, it's just the first question. If you could just show the results, because there was a question in there about money transfers in poll 1.
Okay,
could
so
you share results of those?
Yeah, I can read them out.
Yeah, sorry, I can't see them.
So the question was, what is the biggest challenge you face in transferring funds to your partners? And 19% are saying paying fees, 12% time it takes to administer, 12% red tape, 47%, which is the majority, are saying the lack of knowledge of what is the best option. And then 12% is other.
Great. Well, that tells us something from the start then. It's a good way of framing the session. The reason really that we decided to focus on money transfers in this session is because we get asked about it a lot. And I think that kind of gap, it comes up a lot. So we decided to put on the session really to get your experience and learn from you about what methods you have been using and what things work and what things don't work, and maybe what, it's obviously something that's quite context specific. So what might be appropriate in one context may not be in another. So it's really to kind of tease out those issues a bit more. I know we've only got an hour, but maybe it's something that we can start to develop some more resources and also hear from you what you would find useful for us to focus on as well. So we've got 3 panelists today who've kindly agreed to share their experience with us. Could you just give a wave as I introduce you now, and then I'll come to you in turn. So we've got Amy Parker here from Blossom Africa. We've got Nick Lugg from Kika UK, and Peter Anderson from Chempop. So Nick's from Seeker UK. So thanks for joining us. If I could come to Amy first, could I ask you to unmute and just to briefly introduce yourself and talk a little bit about what money transfer options you currently use and maybe what the benefits and challenges are that you found. If you could talk just for a couple of minutes. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. We're currently in a bit of a period of transition at the moment, so it's likely to change, but I'm going to talk a bit more about what we've been doing over the last couple of years. So we've been working with a partner organisation who it worked out quite well for us because they had a UK base as well. So they were sending funds by eBury. So we've kind of tagged on to them and sent the funds via them. Our experience of eBury is that it's a really great service. The setup can be quite arduous because I also have experience of eBury through my day job as well. So I've been kind of had two separate experiences of working with eBury. The exchange rates are good. Once you're set up, it's really efficient. But I know that quite recently they've had a lot of bad press. They've been shutting down quite a lot of small charity accounts. So, I'd be quite cautious about recommending them. But I have been doing a little bit of research, and I've from very kind of preliminary reading, there's a company called Equals who seem to do a very similar service, and it seems to be getting quite good feedback. So eBury is really good in my experience. The money goes from your UK bank account through a broker, so eBury act as a broker, and then it gets sent out to your partner's bank account. So for us, that's in Uganda. So the process is very efficient, and the service is good. Another really benefit of that, which I think is different to bank to bank account transfers, is exactly what your partner's going to receive. I believe that's quite often a challenge in that the other end, the partner has to negotiate for the rates and things, and you don't get that with eBury. You know what your partner's going to get, which really helps with your planning this end. The other things we've used over the years, we've used Western Union from time to time when we've needed to get money out quite quickly, because our challenge with eBury and working through another British organisation was we had to put the money into their bank account and then wait for them to be sending, and they'd only send sort of once a month or something. So it was quite time consuming, and we had to time it quite carefully. Western Union is really, really quick. In our experience, the exchange rate is lower, and there's more of a fee, but it's not that prohibitive. It's quite reasonable in my opinion. I find Western Union, we've never had any problems with Western Union. Their due diligence can be quite intense. I think once or twice we've had transactions that have been challenged, and we've been on the phone for ages with them, but the payments have always got there in the end, and we've never had any major trouble with the Western Union. So again, I'm quite a big fan of Western Union. I don't know if that's controversial, we'll soon see, but personally I like them. And we've also just to say on Western Union, the setup is quite straightforward. It's quite quick. It can go to an organisation, I believe, but when we've used Western Union, it's tended to go to an individual. So I'd be interested to hear other people's experience of maybe organisation to organisation transfer. I feel like that might be trickier. And we've also used World Remit, which have been good. Again, low fees, quite quick and efficient. I know there's quite a few similar services to World Remit, like TransferWise, Remitly, StoneX. We don't have experience of them, but from what I understand, they're quite similar services. So I feel like I've mentioned like hundreds of different types of options there, but hopefully that's kind of a whistle-stop tour of our experiences, and I'm obviously really happy to answer any questions as we go through the session.
Great, thank you, Amy. I'm going to carry on and go to Peter. Could you just share your experience? I'm going to share, you had a couple of slides which I'm going to share now.
Yes, I'm unmuted now. Well, you asked who we were, so there's just one picture there, very briefly, just to introduce the organisation I work with. Again, it's Uganda. We are involved with, we have been involved with them for a number of years now, since 2016. It was Hub Company Africa, in fact, that gave us our first £1,000 to set up a relationship with Kempop. What we're doing is growing mint plants. They're producing novel products for local markets, but in the fullness of time, we hope to expand that. Food and drinks based on menthol flavorings and spearmint, personal care products, and we're moving towards mosquito repellents as well, from essential oils from a different mint plant. So, okay, the next one, to get on to the money transfers. We've never used an intermediate partner. From the beginning, we started with simply bank-to-bank transfer. We found a way of doing this with a bank account that had a zero transfer fee, and in fact, you can find what the receiving partner will get. So we didn't find that was too much of a problem. Right at the very beginning, I used to go along to the Western Union office with a fistful of banknotes and actually pay cash, and that worked very well. It's very convenient. And nowadays, of course, you can do it online. There is a fee involved, but despite the fee, you can see there that the actual rate of exchange is pretty good, and it's a direct input to the bank account at the other end. There's a mobile option, but I don't favour that. As Amy mentioned, there are other online transfer options available nowadays, like World Remit, which can be to a mobile phone account or to a bank. There's other ones like Wise, and there's a post office option, all of which give variable and rather confusing, perhaps, rates of exchange, depending on the rate at the time and the transfer fee that's involved. But those rates that I've got there in column 2, they are the effective rates comparing what you send with what the recipient will get. So you can see there's apparently quite a wide variation, but when you break it down on the basis that there's about 5,000 Ugandan shillings to the pound, the difference between the top rate and the bottom rate in that column is only about 30p anyway. So that really, doesn't amount to very much. And we've found that in terms of security, the bank-to-bank transfer system is as good as it gets. It's very accountable. We can show a paper trail back to WCVA when they want to know exactly how we spent the money, and it involves 2 people in our particular case. So I would favour that over, say, a mobile money transfer, which is okay if you're transferring to an individual, but perhaps it's not appropriate when you're transferring to an organisation where it's got to go into a pooled account. So there we are. There's a number of options there. We find it convenient to do direct bank-to-bank transfer. It's very quick as well. The money arrives there within a day typically. So that's the experience we've had. And any questions later? Fine.
Fantastic. Thanks, Peter. I'm going to come to Nick now and ask you just to introduce yourself and share a bit of your experience, and then we'll take some questions from everybody.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Nick Lugg, and working in this area with a charity called Seeker UK, Caring in Crisis Africa in Zambia, Zimbabwe and Kenya. And so we're transferring money on a regular basis. Also got another hat in the sense of doing a consultancy called Pathfinder Charity Solutions. So I'm also very keen on the policy end of money transfers as well. And, you know, we've, over the course of 20 years or so, have been quite pragmatic in the way we've transferred cash using also, you know, any way that works and it's developed, but also so have the reporting requirements and the red tape. That was one of the questions, you know, about from the Charity Commission, and so it is important to be clear on that. We have used eBury and have been closed down by eBury, not because of anything we did wrong, just weren't big enough. I think they were taken over by Santander. And there is a lot of aversion to charity accounts in the banking sector, I do work for another larger charity that still uses eBury, but I think it's more profitable for eBury to continue. But that was a good system. Bank to bank transfers, again, rates are found not so good and fees expensive, and I've used Western Union as well. But TransferWise has been mentioned, and I find that very useful, easy to set up, very useful way of getting money out fast. The only thing is, I mentioned about policies and things like that, is that in the annual return now, there are now mandatory questions, I think, about the way that we transfer money. And if we're using companies outside of the formal banking sector. And having looked into it a bit further and talked to the Charity Commission about it, found that even eBury, TransferWise, all of these foreign exchange transfer companies are technically outside, from the Charity Commission point of view, outside of the formal banking sector. They're not like the high street banks. It doesn't mean they can't be used or shouldn't be used, but it does mean that we have to be very careful in terms of working out why we use a particular system compared to others. Why we think it's the best, and being aware of particular risks. For example, TransferWise, like most companies, is registered with HMRC and with a financial conduct authority, and so there are safeguards there. But it's not a bank in the traditional sense, and you can hold funds with it. For example, you can deposit funds. You can get Kenyan shillings or Zambian kwacha if you've got a particularly good rate. You can lock in a rate with them. But all the time they're holding your money, it's being held by an intermediary. Now, there are safeguards and that around it, but again, from the Charity Commission point of view, they don't view it as safe as a bank, and so therefore you just got to show awareness of the risk associated with the method that we've chosen, and so that's sort of really focused on my mind a lot. There's times when we've used Western Union and things like that, and again, there are good reasons for using it. But we just have to understand the chain, the process where the money is going through, and make sure that we've covered every stage with a risk management policy. The reason I say it again is I had a friend recently, a contact, who transferred a significant amount of money by Western Union in the course of the year, and after they reported that fact in their annual return, were contacted by the Charity Commission for a meeting, which is always a bit daunting, isn't it? A meeting with the trustees. Again, not as a because anything had been done wrong, but because it was not what was regarded as necessarily an automatically safe option, and so they wanted to know what thinking process and decision making process trustees had gone through in order to decide on that method. And so all of those things are important. Having said that, like I say, I do use TransferWise, have used eBury, have used Caxton FX, all of those, but I'm just mindful of the need for very good record keeping and keeping it all clear, so that there's never any tangle with the Charity Commission or indeed with HMRC and gift aid and that sort of thing. So.
Can I just ask you, Nick, on that? Did Charity Commission offer guidance on what they expect in terms of record keeping and risk management in relation to money transfers?
Yeah, they do. There is a Charity Commission compliance toolkit. They referred to it directly in an email I got recently. There's one. Chapter 4 of the toolkit is called "Holding, Moving, and Receiving Funds Safely in the UK and Internationally." So there's a lot of well-written, clear guidance. It's not, there's still a lot of decision making that has to be done. It says, I mean, they quote, to quote them here, it said, trustees should assess whether the financial controls that the charity have in place are robust enough for the use of these methods, they're talking about eBri and TransferWise, or whether additional safeguards are required for these kinds of transactions. While charity funds are in the hands of an intermediary, trustees may not be able to exercise and monitor those controls directly. And so they just want to know that you're aware of any particular risks that your funds are facing, and you know that they're safe. My understanding and my assessment of TransferWise is that putting money into TransferWise and then transferring it straight out, I look at that as a secure chain. But again, you just have to be able to demonstrate it in your reporting.
Could I come to Yvonne? You've made a comment here about you've tried to transfer from Nationwide UK and Barclays Uganda, and they've lost your money. So
yeah, I've tried to do this transaction 4 times. The first 2 times it went through perfectly fine. The 3rd time I thought it had gone through okay. It appeared to get there. The 4th time it didn't get there, and when I made inquiries about the 3rd transaction, they've then put a hold on the 3rd transaction, if that makes sense. I possibly haven't explained that very well. And the complaint has been with the banking ombudsman, at least 8 months. I can't remember, since about last June, whatever that works out to be. And so I totally dispute that banking bank-to-bank transfer is safe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, go on.
Well, I was just going to ask if anyone else had any comment or input to that, any experiences in relation to bank-to-bank transfers, or does anyone want to comment? Or Nick, you carry on.
No, I was just saying, I think we've certainly had experience as well of losing funds, and it's not. I'm not making a case for bank-to-bank being the safest. It's just that that's the expectation. I think probably what they would say is that, and again, even though you've not resolved it, you've got recourse to the banking ombudsman, and that because of that. So I think it isn't. There is risk, and certainly the Charity Commission recognise that there is significantly higher risk in international money transfers than there would be in, say, a UK-based charity, and so the key is managing the risk and minimising the risk, even though sometimes things can go wrong.
Can I ask something that you talked about, which comes up, is the use of charity accounts. So in an ideal world, you would transfer from your charity account through, for example, any of the Western Union or whatever, and you mentioned that they don't like charity accounts, or this is a problem. They prefer individual to individual transfers rather than being from a charity account.
I'm not sure. I don't know if I've experienced that. I certainly know that banks can be reticent to open charity bank accounts and can be quite, and also willing to close them, as we've seen, because of the risks related. I do think from an accountability due diligence point of view, an organisation bank account is always going to be preferable to an individual bank account. There can be issues with that.
Does anyone have? So I know you all work in different contexts, but where you're working in a context where the banking system actually doesn't function. So you don't actually have that choice to do a bank-to-bank transfer, and therefore you have to use other ways of doing the money transfers. Has anyone got any? Obviously that limits in terms of you're talking about the charity commission requirements and that you're increasing your risk. Therefore, so is there any way you can manage that risk, or has anyone got any experience from that perspective?
But,
Sue, do you want to speak?
Yeah, we transfer money to Zimbabwe to a Christian charity, but the banks in Zimbabwe that our charity uses will only give Zimbabwe dollars, their own currency, which is almost worthless. So we tried World Remit, but they blocked us because we had said we were a charity, and they said they're only set up for individuals, sending money to individuals. So that doesn't work for us. But we do use MoneyGram up to about $1,000 US dollars at a time, because he gets US dollars. So, and that's worked no problem at all, and the fees aren't great. But we mostly use Western Union, but we can't transfer the money from our charity account because, again, Western Union say they won't accept a business account. I can see Wendy nodding her head. So we have to transfer the money from a personal account and then get reimbursed, which of course we shouldn't be doing. And I don't know what the Charities Commission would think about it, but it's absolutely crazy to me, because Western Union, their questions are, this long row of questions, who is it going to? It's coming from a charitable donation to a charity, and they accept that, but they won't allow us to use the charity account. Mm. So it is frustrating, red tape.
Mm.
Nick, do you want to?
Just to add to that, I think I have got some experience the same as you. With Zimbabwe, it's a particular challenge because often, if you send money to a bank, you can't withdraw the money from the bank, and all of that. And so World Remit, for example, is a good option, and Western Union in Kenya for the same reason. And I think you do get pushed into a corner sometimes, as you said, with the individual. Having to transfer from a personal bank account or a personal debit card to a personal. And I think then in that case, you can see that this really is the only practical way we can send the money. And so just detail that decision process, and then also keep the record. So like I say, it's not ideal that we pay out and then are reimbursed, but if we can show the trail all the way through, then I think that's going to be the best way of approaching it. If there's obviously a better, more secure route that can be used, then that would be the one. But sometimes, as you've said, in different circumstances, there isn't. And I think the Charity Commission, so they're not a police force as such, but they're interested in awareness of risk and measures taken to cover it, and often so I've sent money to Kenya and we've had to send it to a personal, so somebody picks it up personally as cash and whatever, but again with an insistence on an account, on receipts, on evidence, all of that, you can sort of cover most of your bases in terms of reporting.
So really important record keeping.
Very important,
yeah. So there's a few comments in the chat from Amy. This was a few years ago, but I'm pretty sure Western Union turned down my transaction when I tried using my Blossom Africa card, but they accepted your personal one, so similar. And Kathy as well saying that they won't accept money from business accounts, only personal. Anyone know of a Western Union / World Remit type service that will accept payment by business bank accounts? Question from Kathy. No, it seems not, sadly not. That's what we need, it seems, doesn't it? But nobody has an experience or any suggestions.
TransferWise has a number of options for sending money, and you can set up, it just took me a few hours to set up a charity account with them.
Sorry, who was that with?
TransferWise.
transfer wise? So you set up a charity account with the transfer service?
Yes, and they give you a sort code and a bank account number, which you, so therefore when you're ready to send money, you pay money to that UK sort code, bank account number, and then it comes up on the dashboard. The money's there, and then you can send it to a bank. You can send it in different forms from there. But they needed the names and dates of birth of trustees, certificate of registration, that sort of thing. But both times I set up an account, they were set up within a day.
Okay, good. Pearl has said, I transfer from a business account to Sierra Leone with Western Union and haven't had any issues. Okay. So is that business rather than a charity account? Pearl.
It is a charity account, but we're also we're a registered company, so
okay.
Account, it can, as far as we're with NatWest, as far as they're concerned, it's business account, and we've never yet had an issue sending money. We've done Uganda and Sierra Leone, and also out Cambodia, I think it was, or the Philippines, and there was no issues there either.
Okay, and that was, you do that online?
Yeah.
Kathy's asking.
Yes.
Okay. And Pearl said, okay, you paid direct from business account. And Fidelia,
can I just interrupt? So is the issue here that if we, Pearl, do you just like literally just, do the you put the order through and then you transfer money from the bank account directly into Western Union?
Yes.
So
yes.
I think that's where I'm going wrong. So if I use what it says, it won't accept debit cards from business accounts, but if it will accept online bank transfers, that will solve my problem personally.
Yeah, hang on a sec. I think one of my colleagues did the last one, just did it last week. I wonder if it says on his. No, he's paid it direct with it. Actually, I tell a lie. They've paid it direct with his debit card that is registered to our business bank account. They just done it online. So I'm not sure. We've never hit an issue.
So there's not a consistency then in the way that Western Union
we've just not been picked up yet.
Okay, interesting. I'm just conscious of time, and we were going to have a bit of a group discussion just to share experience a bit more. But maybe we'll make that 10 minutes and then we'll come back and kind of share if there's anything coming from that discussion and if there's any more questions. I'm going to randomly put you into 4 groups. What I've done is I've set up a Google document, and I'm going to put one. If I put Kathy, could I ask you to do one? And Nick, Amy, and Peter, I'm going to send you a link in the chat, and I'll tell you which room I'm putting you in a minute. Sorry, the tech always holds things up. Right, let me just see. Okay. Okay, so room 1, Amy, could I ask you to use, if you click on that link, and then you could also share it in the chat in your room when I open the rooms up. Room 2, could I ask Kathy, could you use that link for room 2, please? Room 3, Fid, could I ask you to do room 3, please? and room for Peter. Could I ask you, or well, either Peter or Nick, could I ask you to use those documents, please? And the discussion questions I will also put in the chat. We've got a slide with them on, but I'll just put the questions here. So we're asking you to talk a little bit. I mean, we've already talked about some of the challenges, so maybe not the ones that have been discussed already, but if there's any other ones, and then to think about how have you overcome those challenges and how we might be able to support with those, maybe more broadly with finance as well. And we've got 10 minutes, so I will call you back in 10 minutes. Okay, thank you. Welcome back, everyone. Could I just ask, I'm aware of time, we've got 9 minutes left. So could I ask group one just to share one or two key things that they discussed? What were your sort of main discussion points and takeaways from that discussion?
Yeah, sure. So we focused on question 2 in terms of ways to overcome the challenges. And in our group, similar sort of themes really, sending money directly to individuals rather than charity to charity seems to work better and seems to be more efficient, and also bank to bank transfers again were coming out as quite a good option, even though there's sometimes a bit of a sacrifice in terms of exchange rate and fees, so you maybe do get a lower rate, but it sometimes works quite well. We didn't get to question 3, but right at the end, we just touched on it basically. And to summarize kind of what everyone was saying is, I think everyone just wants to know that what they're doing is okay. We're all doing quite different things. There doesn't seem to be a silver bullet, but I think everyone would like to kind of understand the options. So I guess maybe Hub Cymru Africa could maybe pull all of this together and provide some kind of clarity. I think Judith said an options analysis. Which I think, would be something that would be really helpful to everyone in my group, certainly. And I think that was kind of the key points. One thing that came out strongly as well was how difficult it is to open a bank account, both in the UK, Europe, and in Africa. So basically there's a big global challenge with banking and opening bank accounts.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So that's something that people have found everywhere. So I've heard that here, but I didn't, yeah. Okay, thank you. How about group 2, please? Would anyone like to nominate themselves?
Yeah, so
thanks, Kathy.
Shall I? Yeah. So I'm not sure how far we got for number 1. The 2 main issues that we talked about was basically the problem of the amount of money the banks are taking off in the exchange rate. So my colleagues in the room from Zambia and from Uganda were both saying that they were losing a lot of the money that was being transferred through exchange rates, and sometimes the currency would be converted from pounds into US dollars before being converted again into the local currency, which means that it's, there's lots of slices being taken off it. And the other difficulty was, as already been said, even setting up a UK charity account during COVID has been a challenge.
Yeah, great. Thank you. How about group 3?
That was us, and question number 1, we thought the time it takes for the money to get there can be very challenging. It's very difficult to know at times how long it's going to take, and especially if you have a middle bank, or you send the money to a bank in order to send to another bank, so that takes even longer. And at times knowing if there's such a a middle bank or not, sometimes it's difficult to know that. One of the challenges was also getting bank details correct. That is in a sense of some banks have got very long numbers, and trying to remember and worrying of not getting them wrong can be obviously very traumatic if you're sending a lot of money and then you end up losing it. But definitely, I think it worries people, making sure they've got the right account details. And even if they've got the SWIFT code or they have the IBAN number, the account number is still a problem. So that issue is also whether the money has arrived as well, just getting to know. And one way of overcoming it, I kind of answers question number 2, is getting a receipt from recipients, or a bank statement to say that the money has arrived or to show that the money has arrived. Bureaucracy can be challenging as well. So for example, if you're partnering a bigger institution, it's a university or a government department, it can be very challenging for the money to actually come out of the institution itself. Some of the ways to overcome these challenges, copying people on emails to make sure that you have the correct bank account. So it's just like the assurance element. Sending money using local currency, so you have value for money, I guess, for what you're sending. Limit the number of people you're sending the money to, and potentially opening a bank account locally. This kind of helps, I guess, to make sure that you're able to monitor your expenditures as well. How can Hub Cymru Africa support? Auditing services for small charities, especially those working internationally. Pooled knowledge of how things work, like an information center or database, and also sessions like this. Some participants have felt that they've gained a lot already because of what we were discussing, but also, for example, the issue of Western Union. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Wendy said she didn't know that you can do Western Union online. So she's still thinking of the old ways of taking a lot of money to a bank in order to send it using Western Union. So that was already something that she's gained from today. Thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. And group 4, can I ask you just to feedback, please?
Okay, that's myself and Nick. And I learned something that it's possible to open a sterling bank account in a country like Uganda. And therefore, the person who controls that account out there can take advantage of the best exchange rate at whatever appropriate time in order to convert to local currency. That's something we hadn't thought was possible. Another thing we discussed was the importance of accountability, having an audit trail, whether you're a charity or whether you're a small organization. You have to be able to show and demonstrate where the money's gone, who's received it, and how it's accounted for. So that goes without saying, but it's very important when you're considering what's the best option. What was the other thing? Oh yes, I wondered whether there's mileage in thinking about a large-scale centralized system for transferring money to each individual country with their separate local currencies, in the way that perhaps Wales government could set up a centralized account for Uganda, say. And the various projects that are working in Uganda would then have their own sector of that and would be able to draw on that Uganda shillings pool. Now, that on the other side of the coin may open up a whole raft of red tape, which would be undesirable. So you'd have to think about it, I think, before taking that idea forward. But there might be advantages in terms of mass transfer of optimizing exchange rates through that, minimizing costs and so on. So I just leave that in.
An idea.
Have I left anything unsaid? No, shake of the head.
Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. I'm just aware of time. It's already 5, so I'm sorry for running over a little bit. So yeah, there's a couple of comments about Western Union there. Cheaper when using online rather than using cash, particularly through the bank. Thank you for your inputs in the breakout rooms. That's really useful, and we will come back to this session, and I'm going to look through I'll be able to watch it again and kind of think a bit more about what you've said and get your inputs. And then we'll look at what we can do. I'm not promising we'll be able to fulfill all those things, but Peter, certainly your idea, maybe we can come back and look at it in a bit more detail and see if there's anything.
Well, Amy's made a comment on that already, actually. I'm not sure it's viable.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, there
You're
you go.
clearinghouse for this.
Yeah. Fid, could I ask you just to launch the final poll, please? We'd really appreciate if you could just fill in the feedback to evaluate the session. Thank you. And I'm also going to, we also have a longer survey link, which Peter's going to paste in, which has a bit more in-depth questions about the summit.
Thank you. The poll is live.
Great.
Okay, most people have responded, just want a few to go.
Great, and just a reminder there in the chat for the rest of the week, please join us for other sessions as well. It'd be great to see you again. Yeah, and thanks for your participation. Really appreciate it. It's been really useful. Are the polls ended? Sorry, I can't. Slight technical issue that I can't tell. Fid.
We're almost done. I
Okay.
think, yeah, we're very much done. Yes, for everyone that is. I guess I don't need to read out. This is more internal. Emma?
Up to you. You can share them. I suppose accountability, we should share our results briefly. I'm sure you all want to also get for your next cup of tea.
Okay, I'm just going to end poll. Right, I'll share. 63% thought this session was excellent, 38 good, so majority are happy. Definitely recommend 100%. Recommend a session. Hub Grammy Africa events, improved knowledge, 100. Improved confidence, 100. Aha moment, 44% had aha moment, 56 said no. Do you intend to take any action as a result of this? 81% said yes. 6% said no. 13 are not sure.
Great. Fantastic. Yeah, thank you very much for your participation. And yeah, we'll see you soon.